Hey there, welcome back to day 6 of the Perfect Push-Ups Challenge. If you're with me this far, you've learned some exercises to help you build up the strength you'll need to do push-ups. And then also in day 4 and 5, we had some variations of push-ups that can help you get across the finish line if you're almost there but not quite. So if you missed any of the previous days, go back and check those out. But for today, I thought it would make sense to narrate what I'm showing you, just because I know with the previous days, what I was demonstrating in the video had no audio. The instructions were all in writing, and I know especially when it comes to alignment tips, which is what I'm going to talk about today, it can be just a little confusing to go back and forth between what's written and what you're seeing in the video, so I'm putting it all together for you today. So today we'll be talking about alignment in the upper body and form tips, and then tomorrow I'm going to talk lower body. So for day 6, let's get to it. What do you need to know, and what do you need to be thinking about and working on in your upper body to have proper healthy form for a push-up, knees or toes? I'm going to show you knee push-ups today because it's just a little easier. Actually, you'll find too, probably. Try it out. But if you can do knee push-ups and push-ups on your toes, I think you'll find that it's easier to focus on form in the upper body, at least. When you take some of the weight off and by bringing your knees down, the push-up becomes easier, and you can focus more on like what are you doing with your hands, wrists, elbows, shoulders, etc. All right, so first let's talk about the position of the hands, arms, and elbows in a push-up. There are essentially 2 variations, and then you could do something kind of in between. It's a continuum, but the 2 extremes are you're doing a push-up with the elbows wide. See how my elbows are coming pretty much straight out from my shoulders? Or this is sometimes called a tricep push-up. Elbows stay right in by my ribs. See how the elbows are going more back now. So if you looked at my upper arm bone, in the first one it's pointing right out to the side, kind of like this. Second one, it's more like this position when I come down. So this versus this. There's more I'll say about the hand position, but let's stick with the arm position right now. So is either one of those right or wrong? No, but you should experiment and see how they feel in your body. When I was first learning to do push-ups, this one with my elbows wide was so much easier. So if you're trying to do tricep push-ups with the arms narrow and you're really struggling, try taking your arms wider and just see if that makes it easier, makes it possible when it wasn't possible in this other position. Now, I have had people tell me that the wide position can put stress on the rotator cuff. That's not an area of my body that seems to be vulnerable. I haven't had shoulder problems yet, thank goodness, but just be aware of that and be careful of that. And if your rotator cuff is something you've injured in the past, definitely exercise caution and don't go too hard with the wide position. You know, try it once, or maybe don't try it at all, but just know that when you shift, it's a slight shift in the muscles that are being worked and the muscles you're using to support yourself. That can be that can make a difference in terms of the perceived difficulty level of the exercise. All right, now hand position relative to your chest. This was in one of my earlier videos, but so especially in the wide position, they should be right at the center of the chest. I say the nipple line because that's kind of the obvious marker, like the chest is a big place. So center of the chest, out from the sides. Now if you're doing tricep push-ups, your hands should be a little further back. So just to show you, wide position, hands at the center of my chest, take them a little further back for that narrow position, because remember the arm bones are in this kind of forward back alignment direction. So that makes sense then that the hands would be a little further back. Again, this versus this. And by the way, leave any questions in the comments and I will get a notification and I'll answer them. All right, now let's talk about what happens if you have elbow pain or wrist pain. For wrist pain, these push-up stands have saved me many times. Like, they basically make it possible for you to do push-ups if you couldn't otherwise because of your wrists, I think, for most people. Like, most issues where you're, you know, flattening your palm on the floor, where that's not possible for you, instead, you can just grip this and it keeps the wrist in a neutral alignment instead of this flexion, okay? So, like, for example, I got bitten by a dog and had hand surgery and I couldn't spread my palm like this for several weeks. So at that point, I couldn't grip this handle really well, but I at least could put my hand kind of around it and do the push-up that way. So I highly recommend investing in a pair of these. I don't remember how much they cost, but they weren't that expensive. You can get them on Amazon. Just search push-up stands, or any sporting goods store should also have them. I think they even have them at Target in the sporting goods aisle. So for wrist pain, this is what I recommend. I have all kinds of tips actually for looking at how you're using your hands and how you are distributing the weight. But I have another whole video on that. So if you have a lot of trouble with wrist pain, things like downward facing dog in yoga, shoot me an email or a message and I will give you the link for that other video where I go into more detail about wrist pain. But let's talk now about elbow pain, because actually it's like a mini lesson for wrist pain as well, what I'll tell you in addressing elbow pain. So many years ago, like before I had trained as a personal trainer, before I had trained as a yoga instructor, before I was doing virtual coaching, any of that, I don't think I was even teaching group exercise yet. I was just a student, and I loved going to classes, and so I would go to a class every day of the week. So there were a lot of push-ups in those classes, and I remember there was one where we're doing push-ups with our feet on the exercise ball, so there's even more weight on your arms because your legs are not steady, and my elbows were just killing me, and I had to stop. So the instructor asked me what's wrong, and the tip he gave me like changed everything. Like, I've never had elbow pain since then in push-ups, not once. So what I realized was I was putting all of the weight on this outer part. Like at the base of your wrist, there are sort of two major bones that touch down, right? Or the base of your palm, like where the palm meets the wrist, okay? I got my fingers on them now. You can go ahead and feel them on your own body. So if you're putting all of your weight, or most of your weight, on one or the other of those bones, it's double the stress, double the load, right? So you immediately reduce the load on one bone when you distribute half of the load to the other bone. It sounds so obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me when I was doing push-ups, like just on this bone. So I made a point of pressing down the inner base of the palm. So I was pressing down with both bones, and I was having pain in this outer part of my elbow, like really bad pain, and it just disappeared and never came back. So when you are doing push-ups, remember, it shouldn't be all the weight here, shouldn't be all the weight here, but distributed between those two spots. And as much as possible with the fingers spread and weight distributed all around the bones of the palm and fingers as well. Okay, last little bit has to do with the shoulders. And for most people, I would say this probably isn't an issue, but just ask yourself, I mean, if it is an issue for you, it could really be causing a lot of problems. So that's why I want to address it. If you are someone who tends to kind of do this with the shoulders lifted and coming in towards each other, your spine rounding and back, and maybe the head kind of hunching forward, right? I mean, we call it like texting position. And we all do it. Try not to do it, but we do. But so it's really important to open up, roll the shoulders back, extend the neck so the head's going straight up, okay? But if this is like a chronic position for you, make sure that you're not bringing that into your push-ups with you, So before you get into push-up position, roll the shoulders back, spread the chest, lengthen the crown of the head up, and keep it that way as you get into position. Okay, so you get into your push-up position, and then again, you won't be able to move those body parts as much with your weight on your hands. But again, think about spreading those tips of the shoulders away from each other, lengthening forward through your neck instead of, don't do a push-up like this with your head hanging down, please. Okay, so long neck, broad chest as you come into the push-up. And those are the form tips for the upper body. Stay tuned for day 7 tomorrow with form tips for the lower body.